Imagine a perfect world where you can build a restaurant, open the doors, and make loads of money. Unfortunately, those days are over. It takes great leadership, hard work, and long hours to operate a successful restaurant. Together, we can make it happen. This is Restaurantopia. Okay, thank you for tuning in to another great episode of Restaurantopia. I'm here with the normal crew of misfits, Brian Seitz, Anthony Hamilton, and myself, Dave Ross. Wanted to, add to our kind of COVID-19 series of podcast episodes here. And this one here is probably going to go in a lot of different directions, but we're going to talk about, some of the things happening in this pandemic and some of the stuff that, Anthony and I just had a quick conversation off mic about, how when this first hit us that we were all together and it felt really great to all be in it together. But then as the weeks have gone on, there's been some separations that we've seen, and a lot of it's psychological, a lot of it's in our heads, and some of it's reality. So we just want to go through some of those things and talk a little bit about restaurants opening, what they should be doing, and then just how do we deal with all this psychological warfare. So Anthony, as always, has put a lot of a lot into the show notes here, and we'll share those guys with you. But let's kick it off. Anthony, what do you got in?
Yeah, man. I appreciate the lead in. I think that's absolutely correct. And it's fascinating, Dave, because I was listening to some materials you sent my way, and it was, I'm not sure what the title of it was or whatnot, but the guy speaking talked about our playground mentality now and how it's someone getting in trouble and we just point the finger at them. Hey, look, they're in trouble, that sort of thing. And to your point, a couple of weeks ago, it was like we all had one common enemy, right? And it was like we were all in allegiance to fight that common enemy. And now it seems like our enemies are multifaceted. Still, we have the major enemy, but now we have government guidelines and we have regulations and we have people growing tired of the stay-at-home order. And it's all of a sudden our unity is kind of dissipated. And I think that was prevalent this weekend. And what you and I had talked about was the reopening of the restaurant patios this weekend and the public response based on that. And that's really what I want to talk about first and foremost before we get started. But I thought it was fascinating. The deterioration of our camaraderie has been a little unnerving, and I certainly hope we bring it back soon.
But don't you think that deterioration stems from everyone's fear, the fear of the unknown, the fear of this disease, and our desire to have a villain, that it's the COVID, but it's caused by this, and it's, people with mask or without mask, and from this patio. So the more I fear, the safer I feel. And I think that's the defect that we have with the 24-hour news cycle and how things are spinning up. Fearing this more is not going to make it go away. Fearing it more is not going to make you feel better.
No, that's excellent. And Anthony brought up a great point again before we started. We were talking about, getting caught up in the feed of, some restaurants battling with some customers or not customers, and going back and forth on how they should have handled their business. And it was, you get caught up in it. Like, I think, and I don't want to say maybe it's human nature, but I was literally probably for a good hour caught up in the scrolling of these comments and the back and forth and the bantering and the aggressiveness and the negativity. And you, Anthony, you put it perfectly. You're like, oh my God, the sky's falling. Everything. This is monumental. And then you go back and look at, how many citations and how many, and I'll let you share what your thoughts. But man, it's like when you look at it and you pull yourself up out of that fog, that trench, you're like, okay, wow, like this. I just got sucked in. And I feel pretty mentally strong. I literally got sucked in.
Go outside and do one of these, like.
Yeah,
feels
right.
Good. Everything's good. But it's in Brian. To your point, I think fear is the problem, and even deeper dive into that, I think you have levels of fear, and I think that may be even complicating things even more. Because when I look at things and what it came down to is I was able to easily discern like the fence sitters and what position, and we're talking about social media comments here. The fence sitters really had three personalities. I think you had the compliers, people like myself who may be a little more sensitive to the outbreak, whether I fear it or not is different, but I'm more sensitive to it because people I love are sensitive to it. So I comply full. I've been at home. I barely go out. I sanitize everything. And then you have the middle of the road people that know that they maybe should do that stuff or maybe shouldn't do it, but they're a little scared. So they're going to go ahead and take the precautions, but they're not quite as staunch as I am. Maybe they'll take some looser precautions. And then you have the brave hearts who just want their freedom. And that's what it comes down to. And I think the perception I saw was the people like me who are stuck at home and look, it's a choice. Look, the juice ain't worth the squeeze for me. For a lot of people, it is. A lot of people in my position were looking at people going out on to restaurants and hanging out at bars and all over Ohio, and looking at them and saying, "You're taking my freedom away by not using a PPE. You're doing this and you're doing that." And all of a sudden, it became like this pissing match of who's doing what to limit the other person's freedom. So the people, the bravehearts, are out there saying, "Hey, I'm 20 and 30. I'm not going to get sick. I'm not too worried about it. I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm going to go to the hot spot and I want to resume my social life." And people like me are saying, "Hey, look, I'd really like to go to that spot, but since you're not wearing a mask, I can't go. And so now I'm mad because you're taking away my freedoms because you're choosing not to wear the PPEs." And the other people are like, "It's my freedom not to wear the PPEs." So now you have this selfishness versus freedom kind of concept going on. And boy, is it sticky. Very, very sticky.
Well, and I think, and again, it goes back to how it's delivered, and the perception of it is that, the newscast I happened to see, or one of them was this jam-packed patio of all these young people that weren't obeying the rules and guidelines, and oh my God, like they're killing people on this patio. And then they went to some winery in BFE and were like, there's 5 people on the patio. Like, well, look, this place, like, look at them adhering to social guidelines. I'm like, well, there's 5 people there and there's 400 people. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, let's get in the real world here. Like,
yeah. And so go ahead, Brian.
Oh, I think the news media, by its nature and the fear mongering,
ridiculous.
Again, to go back to this, they want to spin the story up. I feel like they have the narrative, they have the story, and then, whether it's rogue journalism or just lazy journalism, they then, shoehorn their narrative into, these clips. And, one amazing photo that I saw was a restaurant from street level. You took the photo and it looks like it's packed and they're doing a just an amazing night. And then you take a picture from the roof or a drone. I'm probably dating myself. It's probably a drone.
No one goes on a roof anymore.
If you get on a 20-foot step ladder. Yeah.
Probably like a biplane or some sort of flying contraption. You take that picture from the top. Yeah. You take that picture from the top and you'll see probably, 30 people there. There's appropriate distance between all of them, and it doesn't look packed at all. So it is a lot of perception. And that's one thing where I think people need to, let's not jump to conclusions. Right. Let's not buy into the fear mongering. And I know I said this on past episodes, but it's this 24 hours news cycle. And during a crisis like this, our inability to think rationally and our ability to actually take a step back and go, no, I don't believe that. That's not true. Or what are the facts that you're supporting, that you're relying on to support this?
Yeah. And that all comes down to perspective, right? So not only perspective from the physical perspective from the photograph, but then also too, having perspective from other people's positions. And going back to what I was talking to about the kind of the position of you're taking my freedoms away. Again, that's perspective. And I think a lot of times we're not empathizing. We're not trying to spend some time in the other people's shoes to see it from their point of view. And that picture is exemplary of that, I think, because that to me made my jaw drop. I'm like, oh God, what did I just believe? Or what did I just read? I should have taken a step back and not got so emotionally involved. But Dave, the sky is falling, right? So 24-hour news cycle. News is not delivering facts anymore. News is trying to grab your attention, is what it comes down to, right? Is that where we've kind of evolved to in this day and age? Because apparently we pay more attention to the negative in life and we're more addicted to that. And it's become more of a business. I'm lazily theorizing here, fellas, so you have to kind of reel me in, but it just seems that the negative sells, right? And that's what it comes down to. So amidst all this, Dave, you have time invested in social media. I have time invested in social media, looking through all these comments. The sky is falling. I dug in some data today. So Friday, the worst day in my pandemic kind of emotion, I looked at the restaurant openings. Oh my God, this is all going down. And, yeah,
they're ruining it for everybody. The first patio opening and these people are going to shut it down again. I mean, that's literally where your head goes.
No, that's exactly where it went. And then I started digging into the data and I realized there's 22,000 restaurants in Ohio, 22,000 restaurants. So in Cleveland over the weekend, there were 4 warnings issued on Friday, 4, right? In Columbus, there were 10. I didn't find any data supporting anything over the rest of the weekend. So the warnings issued the rest of the weekend might have been minuscule at best. out of 22,000 restaurants, I stopped after Cleveland and Columbus. And I'm like, look, there's only 14 issued in those two metropolitan areas. How many more could possibly be issued in the state? Not enough to hit 50% of the restaurants were in violation. So I'm looking at like a minute percentage here, all of which fixed their issues the next day or the day after. Sky's far from falling here. It seems to me that the restaurants did an incredible job over the weekend of doing this. And I anticipate tonight having a similar reaction. There's going to be a couple restaurants that maybe misstep. They're learning on the way. It's not so easy to do. But most restaurants are going to do an amazing job at this, and most people are going to be in compliance. So don't believe the hype,
Anthony, great point to rely on the research and the data. I think this is, again, to get up on my soapbox, this is where people go so off track with is my truth versus the actual truth. People, my truth just means that's your opinion. Your ability to give your opinion, microphone is amazing and been weaponized, and it hurts people because someone with a stupid opinion is able now to tell thousands of other people about their stupid opinion, and the marketplace doesn't shoot that idea down. They buy into it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Barbarians are over the walls.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we're social beings. Okay. So the social distancing and the isolation and all these things that people are going through mentally. And again, I love that you broke it down into kind of three different people, Anthony, that, you got the people that are like, hey, I'm not going out. I'm not doing it. It's too much of a risk. And then you got the ones that I would probably say I'm in that mid group of like, I want to be safe. I want to show safe. I want other people to be comfortable. Like I'm wearing a mask around the office and I'm doing all these things, not for me, but because I want people to feel good and feel safe in the environment that we're in. You know what I mean? And then you've got the people that just are a little more caution to the wind. But at the end of the day, like we're all going through psychological trauma or whatever you want to call it. We're all going through these things. So when people go out and they want to have a couple drinks and hang out with their friends and do stuff, like that's not easy for a business owner to be like, hey, you two split up 6 feet, or you know what I mean? Like, I mean, this is not an easy thing to accomplish. Like, yeah, so yeah. Is it handled 100% perfect? Probably not. Okay. But that's part of being human. That's who we are, make adjustments and let's move on. This industry is going to thrive because we are social beings. You know what I mean? We thrive on being social. That's what the hospitality industry is about.
I think the industry has done a phenomenal job. You pull the plug on them for 60 days. Very few are able to survive solely on carry out, and then you turn it back on arbitrarily, with very little notice, essentially, and then people are able to do as well as they are. I'm really impressed. I think it's great. Like when you look at the facts, how many incidents there are, it's very few.
Crazy too. And that PR we're talking about, I think, is even worse punishment. And the funny thing about it is it's publicly inflicted, right? So like you have the governmental mandates come down and they'll punish you, maybe a second-degree misdemeanor, 750 degrees fine, up to 90 days jail time, revoking of the liquor license, so on and so forth. But you can recover from all those. The PR stunts or the bad PR on social media and people serving their own agendas to slander certain people, those don't go away. Those stay forever. They're screenshotted. They're circulated. You know how you recover from that? God, I just wish we had some patience, man.
I have a different aspect on that. Like I feel like when, right here, when you're scrolling up on your phone, and there's my kids, but you're scrolling up your phone, like a week from now, we're not going to be talking about this. Like, I feel like this is going to be forgotten. Like last week's news, you know what I mean? Like, that's my feeling at least. Now I understand. Yeah. It's still out there. It's still public. It's still all these things, but this is going to go away quicker than it's going to stick around,
I hope so.
But as much as people push out their truth, quotation marks, which is just their way to mask their opinion to be something other than it is, it's just their opinion. And the same person that's trying to stand on their soapbox and be cool to vilify a restaurant is the same person that's going to go there for brunch the next week or would never go there in the first place. So to me, it's so foolish that people buy into this stuff and get into these, Facebook arguments and stuff like that.
It's easy to do though, Brian. It's easy to do. I mean, I know very smart people to fall into that trap. Like, the guy I'm looking at right now. I spent an hour on it the other day. I did too. I get it. It's easy to do.
No, I didn't engage in it.
No,
but I was
no, you're not
definitely, I was
typing,
definitely
right.
consuming it. I was definitely
Mhm.
consuming it.
I,
Yeah.
and I can say like I'm not trying to be holier than thou. I mean, I consumed. I did not engage, but I consumed. And I'll tell you what, my friends and colleagues sent me emails saying, "Hey, look at this, and text messages." So
Yep.
I was getting some of that while it was happening, and people revel in that. And
Mhm.
I think at this time in our society, we want to build people up, not tear them down. Because it's, how would you handle, if your business, for the outsiders that aren't in the industry, if your business was shut down for 2 months and then you opened up like this, what does it look like if you own a hair salon, or if you own, a manufacturing plant, or you work at, a law firm, or, there's things out there that you can and can't do from home. And, the rest of society is going to, have to move forward. What the new normal looks like, we still don't know, but we're all learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think if we just all realize that we're all impacted by this,
Mm-hmm.
some to a smaller degree, some to a great degree, but we're all impacted by it. If we just have patience and we just have some humility, and we just have a little bit of, love for our fellow human, to say like, okay, these people are going through something too. And the way they react, or the way they, we've had, from my family to coworkers in this last 8-9 week period, have had like scuffles and arguments and stuff that probably wouldn't have happened outside of this, because there's added stress and pressure. And,
Yeah. We're rubbed a
like
little raw, man.
yeah, I mean, so we got to have love and patience for each other. It's okay for it to happen, but man, to get on and really try to ruin somebody's business or ruin somebody's life, that's a tough one, man. I don't know. I mean,
Especially using the pandemic as your leverage to do so. I think that's just the same as a business trying to capitalize on hand sanitizer. I think it's despicable. And I hope that people understand their actions have consequences. And while it may just seem like, you're maybe throwing out a public opinion, like, people are going to follow that opinion. You got to be careful. And I think with freedom comes responsibility, right? Is that kind of the old adage? Like, yeah, it's nice to have freedom and you can do what you like to do, but again, there's responsibility with that. You wield a weapon, you can have collateral damage, and you got to be careful, because I can tell you, in those comments threads, and there were multiple establishments all over the state, I saw the word boycott probably 500 times.
Yeah.
And just like that, like, boom, boycott. And Dave, you said we won't talk about it, but we're not going to forget about it. And that's the problem I have for the marketing standpoint, is it's ingrained back here now. So when I think of these restaurants in Columbus and Cincinnati and Cleveland, if I hear their names, I'm going to think about this incident, whether we're talking about it or not. It's burned in there. And I don't think that's fair, especially the way they recovered, and I think they did their damnedest. And I know how hard a lot of these people work. It's really, really tough, man. Really tough. Yeah. It got me a little emotional even, but anyway.
The ones I saw that did the best combating the negative press were the ones that pushed back, put out their own version of what happened, and tried to rally their customer base and the goodwill that they've built up. But it's difficult, and this isn't anything totally new. I mean, we've seen this, within the restaurant industry back when you got 5 bad Yelp reviews because of one server one night, and it's like, that's not fair. And again, these people, they want to weaponize their opinion and put this review out there for the world to see, and instead of reserving a little bit of impulse and acting in compassion and empathy and feeling like maybe the server had a bad night, or maybe they bought food from a national broadliner or something like that, and it just wasn't good product.
That, I mean, listen, I know we don't want to like really railroad this episode, but that could happen. I mean, somebody could make a bad decision to order from a big box distributor, and
you had to get them started, didn't you?
Get crappy ingredients. I mean, it could.
No, I mean, like maybe you picked up, I won't name names. It's not Home Depot, like someplace like that. Like, I mean,
Okay. Well, we got a big weekend coming up, fellas.
I was just going to say, what is coming up this weekend? There's something happening, right? There's something
weekend's coming up, right? As of today, actually, restaurants they're opening up. Memorial Day weekend. I think this is a huge barometer for public trust. Huge barometer. I think the patio was a good testing of the waters, but this one, dining indoors, you're really going to see how the industry is going to look, in my opinion, or at least get a taste of it. And again,
I'm going to tell you my opinion on the dining in. I think people, I think the patio is probably going to be the worst, because people feel the most safe outdoors and all that stuff. But once you get in the restaurants, I think, you're going to see what the real reality of this is.
Yeah, that's a great point, Dave, because we do lower our guard when we're outside because we do feel, more safe. So we're not as conscientious of what's going on around us here. You're absolutely right about that. I didn't
And
even think
listen,
about
when
that way.
when I walk out of Costco, my mask comes off going through the parking lot. I don't know about you guys, but
Yeah.
like,
I'm all the way to the car, brother.
Yeah, I'm
once I'm in the fresh air, I'm like, whew.
We all have different motivations though, right? It's all
Sure.
good. So, it's again, I think this press for a lot of restaurants, I think they need to treat this like their grand opening, like the first time they open their doors, because I think they're going to be under the same scrutiny and the same microscope from a public perception, looking for approval and looking to gain business back, just as they would their first day of business. I'm not sure how you guys feel about that, but man, would I'd be extra cautious today, and certainly be marketing the hell out of maybe reopening up and why customers should come see me.
I think we've seen a lot with our customers and people I know in the industry that have done a great job of marketing to how good they're doing on their cleaning and their cleanliness. And then two, the barriers that they're putting up. And I've seen everything from shower curtains to plexiglass. I mean, I don't know if big plexiglass has, orchestrated this movement, but like there's more plexiglass sold in the last, 60 days than the last 6 years. Like it's insane.
And what do you think? What do you expect from the opening tonight, Dave? What do you think? What do you think you're going to see?
I think we're going to see something similar in the support for restaurants and people wanting to get out and do some things. I mean, I got to be honest with you. Like at 2:00 today, I've got a late lunch with some coworkers, and
Nice.
we're going to hang out a little bit.
Nice.
You know what I mean? Like, because
nice.
I feel like
I didn't see the invite. I'm sorry. Like,
Anthony,
were you on that one? Because
no, I wasn't. But my Outlook's acting up, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like, it's probably that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was.
I'll call Apple. You call Microsoft.
Yeah, thanks. I'll call Bill.
Brian, I got to be honest. I was ready to hit the send button until you jumped on with a tie, and then I just decided to take you off. I decided to delete. But no. I mean, we're going to go out and support our customers and our restaurant industry, and I think a lot of people are going to as well that feel safe enough to go out and do it. Now, I'm going to tell you, I have, again, being that kind of middle of the road person as far as compliance, I would feel much safer on a patio than in a dining room. But we're gonna feel it out and see what happens. But I expect people to go out and support restaurants like they have with the carryout. I think one thing that I've loved to see throughout this is that we've seen it in our business and we've seen it with our customers, is that food is a passionate thing, and people are social animals and they want to have that experience, and food is a big part of that, and food and drink, this industry is gonna make it, and it's gonna come back, so I expect not good things this weekend. I do.
Yeah. That's good.
No, I do too. I think there's a built up demand in the market that people really want to get back out, and they're going to support the ones that they see, doing the cleaning processes and implementing the social distancing to some extent. Maybe locations that service a younger demographic, you'll see, more people there. But I think most places you'll see a good turnout, and maybe more places will get frequented.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said about the people that have already been operating with carry out and delivery and have been doing a pretty good job throughout this and didn't close down. And I think you've got another set of locations that this is really their grand opening. They've been closed down for 2 months, and unless they've really marketed, I mean, I'm not saying that everybody in this situation is going to have an issue, but it's definitely a way bigger challenge to be closed and out of practice and everything. Cause you got to hire, all the things we've talked about in past episodes, you got to hire, you got to clean, you got to, you got to prepare, you got to get your inventory, there's so much going on to execute in a short time period. I mean, we just found out less than 2 weeks ago, that this was going down. So, it's going to be interesting to see how some of those react. And I want everybody to do well, obviously, but I think it's definitely another challenge compared to somebody that's already been operating.
I just hope the consumers are patient, and I hope they have, again, we talk about empathy and walking in the shoes. I hope they understand that. And I hope they understand how rusty the employees are and rusty the systems are and all that jazz. And certainly it's not their burden to bear. They're paying full price. But if they truly love the people behind the business and the independent, and please support them, and please be patient, that sort of thing. You just hope to see it. And I guess we'll have to take that wait and see approach. But man, I hope we can kind of use last weekend as a blueprint and see where it got us, because it didn't really get us anywhere. And it was just a bunch of overblown hoopla. So I hope to see more positivity this weekend. And I, again, to your point, Dave, when people go in, they can see the real measures that are taken as per the Dine Safe order. If you guys have seen that, there's only a handful of rules on there that apply, but they're very integral, and talks about the social distancing and talks about employees wearing masks and that sort of thing. So I hope operators adhere to that, and I hope customers are patient at the end of the day, because then I think that's the recipe for positivity at the end of it. So also, too, I think operators can expect compliance checks, as they have been. And I was actually, I was kind of impressed with the state. I didn't expect them to be on top of it, but they're actually doing drive-bys. Did you guys know about this?
Mm-mm.
Drive-by compliance checks. They can canvass more ground that way. So they're just having health inspectors in cars at like premium times, just driving by establishments, see what the patio looks like before they, invoke law enforcement. They go in and check themselves.
Yeah, but they're not going to be like the cop with the radar gun on the side of the road and the Polaroid. Are they going to write tickets that way, or how are they going to?
No. That's just kind of the diagnostic. So they say, okay, look, this looks bad. I'm going to go in and take a look and see what's really going on.
It's part of the investigation.
That's it. So yeah, it's just a way you can cover a lot of ground quickly.
I'm okay with that. I don't know. I mean, you drive by and you see something that looks suspect, and maybe you check it out. But if you don't, just keep on moving, because it is a lot of ground to cover. And they're ultimately just trying to keep people safe.
I agree, but it's also the restaurateur doesn't.
You don't sound like you. You don't sound like you agree. You said you agree, but it didn't sound like you agreed. It didn't sound like
you said otherwise.
The restaurateur doesn't want to hurt anybody.
Brian, tell your face you agree, because you said it, but like you.
I don't know if I agree. I don't know if I love the idea of all this additional enforcement efforts, because I think it's a slippery slope that we go down to, and now there's all these layers of bureaucracy and all these millions of dollars spent when the industry is, in my opinion, is doing a great job. Self-policing already has a focus on cleanliness and food safety.
Yeah,
so it's built in. It's something that's been there for a long time. I just think that the government wants to come in and exercise more control.
So you want to storm town hall after this, or what do you think?
I'd like a cheeseburger from town hall, but but I think we need to be cautious on how much we allow the government to influence us, because there will be a cost for that, and that cost will ultimately be borne by society and the restaurants when they're already doing a pretty good job. So I worry about that. That's my concern. And what do you think? Shake your head. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't agree at all, because I just simply don't think you can trust operators, and listen, I mean, I don't mean this in a bad way, certainly, but for every restaurant that's incredibly compliant, you have some operators that operate below water. I mean, listen, I hate to say that, but it's true. You guys, it's in any business, right? And so there's no way I think you could just leave it up to them to self-police entirely. And I think you do need government intervention. And I think society needs to see some semblance of government intervention to feel safe. Now, Brian, what you're talking about is a very slippery slope as far as big government and less government, right? But just to kind of calm you down, the task force is only 70 people deep. So it's not that huge of a faction. And yeah. I think it's a nice measure. I don't necessarily think it's controlling, but.
Yeah, listen, with everything that happened, and the sky is falling last weekend, right? And how many were there, Anthony, in Columbus and Cleveland?
10 and 14, or 10 and 4. 4 in Cleveland.
So 1-4, okay. Listen, if they want to drive around and check things out, I think it's fine. They have a responsibility to keep us safe. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
and again, I think it's good for the industry, because the public perception is heightened at that point. Again, it comes down to how much reasonable care can you mount up to make me feel safer before I venture out. And again, I fall in a different demographic than you two, as far as this is concerned.
Yeah, and it's way easier to check out a patio than it is to looking in a dining room driving by. So if they got 14 last weekend, I feel okay that they're not scrutinizing, overly, too much.
No, it's not.
And it gives you confidence the operators are doing the right thing for the most part. I mean,
and I want to kind of circle back to this point of why I think the industry is doing a great job. Think of what every single person, every patron has in their pocket. They have a video camera, and they're all dying to get content out there. And if the place is packed, or there's, people not social distancing, they want to be the first ones to take a picture and post it on their feed. Right. So, it's not the iceberg theory where we're just seeing the tip of it and we don't know what's underneath the water. I think we do. I think it's fully exposed, and the restaurants did a great job. And I think the operators did a great job and should be commended, and as opposed to being vilified or, God forbid they want to make some money after they've been forced to be closed for 60 days.
Yeah.
I think this whole effort to find a villain and then paint them in a bad light is ridiculous to me. And I think the more society needs to be pushed away from the 24-hour news cycle and pushed towards a culture of empathy, love, and caring. That these are real people. Yeah. We're all in this together. And right. Anthony, I care about you and your family. And I want them to be
Likewise,
healthy.
Brother.
I care about Dave and his family. And again, I think about it in my own personal life as far as if my mother lived with us, I'd be more concerned, than my beautiful wife and my young child being in my house, because they're not susceptible.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
they still, again, we're still exercising reasonable caution, but it wouldn't be the same as if my elderly mother, sorry, Mom, lived in the house with me.
Yeah. And again, that everybody's situation is different. So just because, like, Anthony, you have a situation, or if your mom wasn't in that, or my mom was with me, whatever it is, like, we would be acting differently, but I wouldn't be looking at somebody that's not acting that way and say, oh my God, what are they doing? Like, it's a different situation. We're all in our
100%,
in our own situations. You know what I mean?
And listen, I make the choice to stay at home. That's my freedom. I make the choice to stay at home. And I know everybody doesn't agree with me. I look at certain places and maybe they're not, like, certain places I shop. I'll shop at the places that require face masks. Not everybody requires face masks. My favorite store doesn't require a face mask. Guess what? I'm not going there. That's my choice. And is it sad? Yeah, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it, man. I got plenty of options out there. Thank God we have this arena of free enterprise. It's freaking amazing. But
Big Bird?
Yeah, no, not Big Bird. No, it's you save big money there. You save big money there. Yeah, you save big money there. We built some projects in my basement, so it's nice when I go there because the store's not crowded and I have the choice. Yeah, I can't go to my first choice, but guess what? This substitute over here makes me feel amazingly safe.
They have the people clicker at the front.
And they got a security guard. They're checking IDs. Yeah. No one under 16 allowed in. But
I got annoyed. And again, I'm not cheating on your point. Yesterday, I picked up some stuff at a local grocery store, and I got yelled at for going in the wrong door, and then I got yelled at for going out the wrong door because I didn't go through the main.
Just doing whatever they want to do.
No,
There's no laws.
But I'm not a criminal because I went through the shopping cart area versus the front door, and the other door was closed off. Like, so you're creating a pinch point. You're putting all the people through the same area. Aren't we trying to social distance? Like, it makes no sense. But again, I'm not trying to judge them because they have a stupid idea. I'm just saying that you don't need to treat me like a criminal and yell at me because of your stupidity.
The judgment happens accidentally. So we have dining rooms opening, and this is, in my opinion, dining rooms opening over this weekend is a big step closer to normal, right? And we always use quotation marks around normal, and I know the word's been played ad nauseum, but I look at the revenue stream here and I'm concerned about it because I happen to know a little bit about juggling costs and I understand how the restaurant costs work. When I'm operating at 50% staff, okay, it's unfortunate, but okay. And 50% revenue, okay, great. All my variable expenses are a proportion of sales. So if I manage them cleverly, then I'm at the same proportion, whether it's 15%, 30%, whatever the case may be. I'm still at that portion, meaning that I can retain a profit margin of a certain percentage, working in things in the scale of proportionality. My issue is when fixed expenses come in. How do operators navigate their fixed expenses? Brian, and maybe this is an arena for you. We talk about asking your lawyer or your landlords for abatement and your banks for deferments and things like that. How long does that last and how much farther does that go on? Because with your fixed expenses held solid, your variable expenses get managed, but your fixed expenses now represent a larger proportion of your income. How do you remain profitable with your fixed expenses being exactly what they were, but you're only operating at half capacity due to distancing and everything else?
You have to talk to these people and see what you can do. Negotiate with your creditors, see what they're willing to do long-term. Does it involve refinancing? What can you do to change that debt load? And then when it comes to the landlord, and I have not seen very much success in this, what is the new normal? Is he willing for you to bankrupt the location and then get a new tenant in there for much less rent, or is he willing to renegotiate the rent? Maybe extend the term, but I don't know what new normal is. In Ohio, Class A rent was, $25 a square foot plus $5 in CAM. But I don't know if the new normal is going to be less than that, and again, it's all depends on your location. So, when you're emailing Anthony about how stupid I am, it depends where you live. I mean, there's, Cleveland's different than Columbus versus different than Cincinnati.
Yeah. Well, but in different parts of those cities too.
No, for sure. So, but you do have to revisit that. And then you got to go back to your business model. Do you need to pivot?
Yeah, and I think knowing how to knowing where to pivot and what you're good at, and taking something. I had a good friend yesterday who distributes some specialty products to restaurants. He had a customer that he called and he's like, "Hey, I've got this inventory still for you. I know things are opening up. Like, when do you want it?" And the guy goes, "August." And he's like, "August?"
Oh.
He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "We're switching the whole concept." He's like, "We're not going to be a restaurant." He goes, I'm going to sell wine because I'm a little higher end and everybody loves the wine, and I've got the sommelier, and he's like, had this whole thing. He's like, "We're going to do this, and it's going to be." He's switching the whole concept. It's going to be less restaurant and more, wine and things like that. And so, but that guy knew, like, you know what, this isn't probably going to work right now. Like, I gotta figure something out. You know what I mean?
He might've been backed into a corner before the pandemic, and it just helped make his decision. You know what I mean?
Maybe. Yeah. And again, it goes back to everybody's situation is different. Yeah. For sure.
I read an article about an operator in Cleveland that decided early on. I mean, this is a month and a half ago. They said, "You know what? My business is good, but it's not working." They took the PPP loan and they used that to fund the reconceptualization, which I thought was fascinating. Maybe a little risky, but they took that financing at 1% and said, "You know what? I'm never going to get this much money again at 1%. So I'm going to go ahead and use it to fund my reconceptualization because I'm not going to make it through this." And thankfully he had the self-awareness and wherewithal to identify that and make a move on that. And again, it wasn't the most admirable thing to do. People were like, "Well, why didn't you use that on your employees?" and so on and so forth. He said, "Well, listen, if I don't do something, then I'm not going to have any employees. So what's it matter?" And it was a great point, but it's fascinating. And I hope that people evolve, man. And I know there's so many operators who have been doing things so long one way that they don't know another way to do things. Anyway, what's the next phase? What's after this, you guys think? That's one that's boggling my mind. I don't know how to picture it. How long does this last? And when do we take down the barriers? What do you guys think?
I wonder that myself all the time. Whether you're at Home Depot or some of our friends that we've gone into their operations, and you see that they're completely retooled and they look different. They either got shower curtains or they got some sort of plexiglass barrier. What does it look like, and how long is that going to last? Are we going to have a day in August? Hopefully, football is going on, 60-foot dumpster full of plexiglass because there's a vaccine and everything's back to normal. I don't know if that's going to occur, in 2020. So what does it look like? I mean, how do you transition through the next 12 months to make sure that your operation is maybe not successful, but operational, so you can get on the other side and weather this storm? Because
just staying afloat.
Staying afloat, because I think to your point, Anthony, I think the more people that stay in the game are going to be uber successful on the way out of this, because there are going to be a lot of people who don't survive. And you're already seeing it with this national chain is shuttering 57 locations, and this national chain has decided to cut their footprint on these locations. So the consumer, as long as they still love to go out to eat, which I don't think that will change, and get carry out, I think that's going to be a chance for you to get a bigger piece of the pie.
So it's kind of like, if you can wait for the pie to get done baking, you're going to get a bigger slice.
Yeah.
Go ahead. And I think it goes back to, preparing for the worst, and hoping for the best a little bit. Like, the best response I've heard to this question was from an operator that said, this was before the dining rooms were scheduled to be open. He says, "Listen, I'm ready to operate as a to-go, restaurant, delivery and carry out forever." He's like, I'm willing. Like he's like, "I've got a mobile app. I've got this. I've got," and they did very well. They didn't get all the volume back, but they got a good, probably 70 some percent of their business back through operating well in that. And he's like, "Listen, if the dining room's never open, like, I am prepared to run my business this way." So
it might be easier.
Okay, now the dining rooms are open. Okay. Now you've got the plexiglass, you've got the cleaning things, you've got all the stuff up front. You have a sanitation officer, you have all those things. Like, if I'm an operator, I'm thinking, okay, I got to be prepared to do this for as long as I need to.
Yep.
I mean, I can't be hoping that something changes and leave it to, something I can't control. I mean, I'm going to run this as best I can and get the most out of it for as long as I got to do it. And I think that mentality was, to me, I was like, wow, that was like, it really got me encouraged, to say, like, man, if you could just get your mind right, I know that doesn't answer your question because we don't know how long it's going to last.
Yeah.
No, from an operator standpoint, man, like, let's set it up like you're going to do it forever, knowing that it's not.
And Dave, I think if we could all speak to the operators that are closed right now, that you got to get back in the game. You got to have that mindset that Dave was talking about and open back up, because as people will step back into the market, whatever, fence sitter that Anthony described that you are, that they're going to go back into the market. Like, they're going to remember the places that are open. They're going to remember the places that they've been to, and you're going to be top of mind. And then pushing that out there with your social media feed, and so people know about it. But just to get your staff to have the reps, to make sure that your operation is continuing with the, your vendors and clean, and it's being cleaned on a daily basis. I think it's imperative.
Yeah, and if you're sitting there, and if you got that much fear and scared, like when you opened up your restaurant, however long it was ago, like I'm sure there was fear, and there was loans, and there was financial burden, and there was sweat equity, and there was all those things. Like this is just like there's an invisible enemy out there now. It's no different. Get in your operation and get going. You did it once, do it again. Like get back in the game. I agree, Brian. You got to get back in the game.
The only problem I have to that, and contrarily speaking, is the people who have those really small, intimate dining spaces. And I hope that they jumped on the takeout or they jumped on the family packs or some semblance of good business for them. But there's some restaurants that aren't going to be able to reopen. It's not financially feasible to socially distance in the size dining room they have. They're going to make $300 a night. It's not going to work. So now they're just sitting on the sidelines waiting for the next phase.
No, but
what's the next phase though? I mean, that's the thing.
I don't know.
I'm saying if you're gonna wait for the thing you can't control, to me, that mindset is gonna lose long term anyways. I'm not trying to insult anybody out there listening, but if you are waiting for something to happen out of your control, that mindset's not gonna work right now.
I couldn't agree. I couldn't
firmly agree with that.
You're a restaurateur. I mean, you're the ultimate entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I've met with thousands and thousands of restaurateurs over the years of my career. And hundreds, I mean, not thousands and thousands, but hundreds. And the one thing that I was able to glean from them, they're internal optimists, that they're hardworking, that they're willing to take risk, and more importantly, they're willing to adapt to change. This all the change is coming at once, So I think the more you get out there and you make the decision to move forward, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. I mean, you need to take that first step, get back in there, and do it. And to Anthony's point, like if you have a 300 square foot place that that you can't do takeout and that the community maybe isn't going to support you, man, get rid of that and then retool, open up a new location, because it's better now to have a financial turmoil than 6 months from now, 18 months from now.
Right. Now you got flexibility, forgiveness, and resources you won't a year from now.
And guys, let's not trap ourselves in the bubble of hospitality industry. Like if you've got a 300 square foot restaurant that was high end, or you're used to doing big covers and you didn't have to turn as many tables, but now you're not gonna be able to do that. I don't know. Do you love painting? Do you love selling baseball cards? Like maybe this is something telling you that you got to move on in life. Like, but it's okay. Like, but I'm saying the decision to stay in purgatory and say, oh, I can't open my restaurant. I can't, like, you got to move on with life. So maybe the restaurant industry isn't, the rest of your life. Unfortunately, that's not what it is. You know what I mean? No, maybe it's going into consulting. Maybe you get rid of the restaurant and you decide you're going to help other people operate, or, whatever it is. But everybody knows your own, like you said earlier, your truth. You know what I mean? Like, whatever it is, like everybody knows themselves better than anybody. So, but at the end of the day, like, don't get trapped in non-decision and purgatory because you're waiting for somebody else to make the move.
No decision is a decision, man.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, like move, constantly be moving. I mean, this is again the lawyer in me, but like you're a shark. You got to be moving forward. Again, I'm not saying do anything counterproductive, but don't get caught in the cycle of drinking and depression. Make sure you're doing something, and it may start small, may start by working out every morning, but like you got to keep yourself moving.
I don't disagree at all. All right, so last topic I want to talk about, Brian, and this is going to be right up your alley. What happens, and this is going to happen, what happens if one of my staff members tests positive for COVID-19? I'm a restaurant. I'm up and running. My dining room's great. I'm doing some good business. I'm getting back in the saddle again, feeling great. Boom. I got a diagnosis on my crew.
We'll put a sample procedure in the show notes, but you need to have an absolute game plan for this, and it'll depend on your local health department and the state that you're in on how you do it. But we're going to put one up for Ohio. But you want to, identify that employee, send them home, know who they've been in contact with, and then it'll be very detailed on how you proceed forward. But all that being said, as far as how you handle the human side of it, then you got to overlay the cleaning, The restaurant needs to be cleaned thoroughly, and make sure that you use the appropriate level of chemicals, because I think
So you're talking a little bit of a shutdown here, because if it's a, say, a bus person that ventures all over the restaurant and touches a number of things and they get diagnosed, and you talk about cleaning.
my own personal opinion, I think it needs to be a stop and start. You got to shut it down. I think this is just part of doing business now that we never had before.
Right. Well, would you argue that keeping the health department in your pocket as your best business partner in this kind of regard is probably your best move?
Yeah, I mean, again, you heard my opinions as to government earlier, and I'm going to flip the script and say, they're there, use them as a resource. No one's trying to get you in trouble because one of your employees got sick, but you want to handle it correctly. And that's why I think having a playbook and a procedure, which again we'll post on the website, is critical. This is just going to be something that you do, just like when the grease trap is full. Like this is going to be how you this play.
Well, I think if you also put yourself in the position of your customer,
Mm-hmm.
and say, okay, if a place I like to frequent had a situation where somebody got diagnosed, like what would I want it to look like so that I feel safe
Mm-hmm.
coming back in there? You know what I mean? Like remove the employee, remove anybody that, make that safe, do the proper cleaning or fogging. And we probably have some connections that we could help, that Brian and I have made headways on in the past few weeks, of places, if, that you want to be aware of. I would hate to be searching for a place when it happens. I would want to know what I was going to do ahead of time,
No.
Yeah.
And you want to know the price, and the vendors that are doing this, Dave and I have found are fairly reasonable. You can ask your broadline food service provider to get you some good cleaning chemicals. I mean, you're going to want to have a procedure in place, because God forbid, think about it, if your line cook or someone in your organization, in your family gets this, you want to be able to isolate them and protect the rest of the crew. Anthony, maybe you could talk to this, in the front of the house may be a little easier than the back of the house, but how you have stations set up, how many people you have. You've talked in the past about retooling your menu.
100%. Sure, and this is one of those reasons why.
Yeah. And I love those ideas.
Thanks, buddy. So I look at it, this is twofold. First, I love the idea of having a preparation kit. I'm a crash kit kind of guy. I always had something in my restaurant if the power went out. I had a suitcase full of flashlights, batteries, that sort of thing, credit card chunkers. I like to be prepared. And because, boy, nothing like not being prepared. I'm writing up my public service announcement, my PSA, and I'm controlling the narrative right now. So I have it ready to go. I have it typed up. I have it sent to my legal team. I have it sent to my trusted loved ones to get some input on how their perception would be if a restaurant sent that out. And I have it queued up in my send ready to go, because the minute something happens, I'm in front of the narrative. I'm not waiting for someone to report on me. I'm going to report on it first, right? And then secondly, Brian, limiting your menu makes you less reliant on staff. And I know that's contradictory to what we talk about the humanity and bringing people back and all that. But quite frankly, you have to protect your business, or you can't protect the staff that you do have. So by limiting my menu, I have less reliance on the sheer number of people I need in my place. And this is where that flex person comes in, that roundsman, your sanitation manager, or even cross-training a busboy to do fry stations so your fry cook can move to grill, whatever the case may be. These are old tricks that restaurateurs have been using for years and years. I'd worry less about that and worry more about the public recourse, the public opinion, so to speak. And that's what I would be out ahead. Restaurant folk are resilient. We find a way to fill holes. We're like Tom and Jerry in a submarine, right? I think it was Tom, and he was trying to plug holes in a submarine, and he ran out of fingers and toes. Like we're those people. We know how to do that. And whether it's a station or whether it's a shift, we always get it covered. It always happens, and the place never shuts down, right? So there are things to help with that, like limiting the menu. But again, I'm looking more from an administrative standpoint, controlling the damage. And also too, I'm a little worried about liability, and maybe you could shed some light on that. I have employees that may not want to come back to work. They don't feel the most safe, even though I provide what I would call a safe environment. I have a couple employees get sick. What happens? There's lawsuits already out there right now, and they're not going to get settled anytime soon. But what's the precedent, or how do you feel about that? Because I know a lot of operators are worried about it.
I think it's difficult to trace someone's illness back to the operator, just because of how, if you look at the data, how long this condition or disease lays dormant in the body. I think that's something that Congress is going to come down with, probably institute some form of tort reform. There's a lot of different views on that, but I don't know if a restaurant should be held liable because someone got sick that was either working at the restaurant or in the restaurant. We've had issues in the past with communicable diseases. I don't know. I mean, again, I think that's not something that we're going to fix on this podcast. I think it's something that the government needs to put down clear standards, and if not, they'll probably do some sort of tort reform.
So the consultative takeaway for operators concerned about this would be, look, as much reasonable care as possible, right? Follow all the guidelines you possibly can, the Dine Safe guide, the promise, all those things. And that's probably the best practice right now until some legislation's handed down to give us a more definitive picture of where this lies.
I completely agree. Like, at the end of the day, if you, and we said this in the last episode, again, there's so much uncertainty out there. If you act reasonable and you do what you'd want people to do, like Dave said, as far as, how would you want a restaurant to conduct themselves if you were a patron there? That's what you should do.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. So that was the last topic I wanted to cover on. I think that's a big one. It's not something we talked about before, but inevitably it's going to happen in spades, and you're going to see it in the NFL, and you're going to see it in restaurants, and you're going to see it in anybody. I mean, there's going to be COVID cases that happen, right? So, Dave, I think that leads us to your topics, my man.
No, I think I wanted to kind of, like, if we can wrap it around full circle, we started off a little bit on this, but I just want to talk about, again, if we all have patience with each other, and we all have love for our other fellow humans, which, I think for the most part as human beings, we do. We do get sidetracked. We do go down the rabbit hole at times. We do have bad days, but I think patience is huge right now. I mean, I think you have to understand where you lie in the situation and know that there's other people that may not lie in the same place, and that it doesn't have to be a black and white, a black and white thing, that there's a right and wrong, because you didn't like the amount of people somebody had in the restaurant or whatever. This is a fluid thing, and it's dynamic, and people are trying to do the best they can. But like we started off, this industry and these operators are truly doing the best they can to do what they love to do. And that's be hospitable and serve people. That's why most people get into this business, And so to think that, people are out there intentionally trying to hurt people or trying to get people sick, we need to have some patience and have some love for our fellow people. And I think it's not lost to say that, we're all going through a certain level of grief, and grief doesn't have to be death. Grief can be, from many different things. It could be loss of a job, could be loss of financial stability. It could be you had somebody that actually, perished from COVID, but it doesn't have to be. It could be, it's all kinds of, it's social isolation. It's, it's all these things that are happening right now. Like, we just need to have patience for our fellow person and know that we're all going to get through this. Let's get back together, like the first couple of weeks, let's get back together, and let's get through this together. Like, you should feel good that somebody's got big business in their restaurant. Like, it should make you feel good about the future of what we're going through, so that's the biggest thing for me to, if I were to wrap this up, is just, have patience and love for people around you, and it'll go a long way.
I love that, Dave. And just because we disagree doesn't mean that we have to hate each other, right?
Yeah.
It seems that the way, though. But and I also love the optimistic approach too. It's rather than be an envious, be optimistic.
Yeah, because things getting back to normal, right? I mean, when you see restaurants with people in it, like, we should feel good about that, as
we defeated the enemy.
Exactly.
Right.
So yeah, we don't always have to go to the negative aspect of it. So
the more we move forward with empathy and love, I think the better we'll be as a society. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Anthony, for contributing today. Everything will be found in the show notes, and look forward to any feedback, any show topics that you want to hear about. We love hearing from you. I want to thank everyone who's put a 5-star review on iTunes. Really appreciate that. There's some great reviews there, and the criticism can also go to Anthony's email again. So
please,
look forward to talking to everyone next week, and have a great weekend. Get out there and get in a restaurant.
Yeah, go buy some food.
Yeah, have the weekend, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Big deal. It's like a Super Bowl. Anyway,
thanks, guys.
Hey, be good, fellas. We'll see you.
Thanks, guys. This is a high quality pod. Thank you, everybody.
Take care. Adios.
Thank you for listening to Restaurantopia. The gratitude that we have for each and every one of you spending your precious time to listen to this podcast is immeasurable. Please make sure to tell a friend about this podcast, And also, if you have any feedback for us, visit us on restauranttopia.com and drop us a line. You can also subscribe on your favorite place to listen to podcasts. Thank you and have a great day.
No zippers today.
Yeah, get that mic out of the zipper. Hear something, say something. That's our new line. Like we're not letting it go.
Good.
I felt like such shit, man. I was like, oh, can't believe like I didn't say anything.
That's
Just
okay,
I'm
man.
like, oh, it'll be all right. It'll be all right. It'll be all right.
I felt shitty too. I'm not gonna lie.
No,
like,
you wouldn't have known. Like we could hear
No
it.
way.
You can't hear it. I mean, so yeah.
Still felt like a jackass.
Anthony,
yes,
your audio is gold today.
Oh, sweet, buddy. You know what it is? A 86 is zippers, homie. I like the entrance. There's no hello, no small talk. Just jump right in midstream.
He's been here the whole time. What do you mean?
Has he really?
No.
Oh, hi, Brian.
Look at this guy. Get that off. Get that off.
I thought we
right
had
now.
the orientation I received.
Somebody had a bad day in the office.
I had I had a 30-second orientation at Hillcrest. We have 2 rules: no ties, no dickheads.
That's it.
You got both today.
I was gonna say,
Brian, seriously, get rid of the tie and jacket. Really?
yeah, what the hell's going on? What's he doing? Is he going to church?
The shirt looks insane. It's
What do
like
you mean?
too tight. I'm too fucking fat.
That's what I'm saying. So take the tie off. Let your dogs breathe a little bit.
Should I go no tie, just the jacket? Okay.
There you go. So Brian, I went to school. Went to the Brian Site School of Pod Preparation.
Yeah.
Oh wow, you went knock on it. You guys are kicking in the nitrous. Oh Jesus Christ!
It's not just for your vape pens, kids.
Yeah.